Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy and I'm here with my co-host
Heather Baker.
Yes, and we're excited tonight to talk to Cole Diamond, otherwise known as Ryan Otto. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be on the show. Not to start it off with a correction, but it is Oddie.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, thank you. I'm glad.
I'll answer to any of them.
You know, I know a family of Ottos. That's all. That's entirely on me. I have some cousins that aren't yours that you should meet.
It's and anything from Ott, Odie, Audi, so.
Oh, I'd go the Audi because maybe there'd be some car business going for you.
Right. Yeah. Some people try to make it like a little fancier than it actually is. It's just OTTE, but they'll throw some accents in there.
My last name is Tracy, but it's an unusual. It's an Irish spelling. The best I ever got was Triaki.
It's like actually, yeah.
I was gonna go with that. Well,
I was gonna say that sounds like a marinade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm very
a nice Triaki.
Yeah, exactly. Or it sounds like medical. Anyway, since we're starting with names, tell us how you've come to have two different names. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's start there.
Yeah. Well, right. As you mentioned, my real name is Ryan Oddie. And when I started, I've been playing in bands for a while now, but mainly just drums. I've mainly just been a drummer in all sorts of bands. And I finally decided that I just kind of want to start writing my own songs and, start playing guitar more, which I always like to do around here. And, but, I was like, Ryan Oddie, it just didn't really evoke like much excitement. I don't know, so it was I was at work and there was some email that had a ton of people CC'd on it. And I was just kind of scrolling through. Oh no. Sorry. Can you guys hear that?
No.
Oh, nope. My phone was beeping. Anyway, but so I was going through this email and there was a name in there, Cole Diamond. And it was like COLE, like an actual, and I thought, I'm like, that's a great name. And I just kind of put it in my little, like most people, musicians have their little kind of notepad going of all random band names that they hear throughout the day or cool song names or something. So that went in there. And then I was like, yeah, Cole Diamond, that's a great country name. So that's kind of where it was born. The most uncountry way in an email.
It's new country.
Yeah, exactly. Very new.
Now, do you feel different when people are calling you Cole Diamond? Does it allow you a little bit of a persona that you might not otherwise?
I think there is something to that. A lot of times when we used to play gigs, most of the people there aren't people that I know. It's when you've been playing in bands for like 20 years, you kind of burn out all your friends on coming to your gigs all the time. So when I started this project, it was like solely relying on strangers, so in that regard, it makes it easy because I'm like, well, I don't really know any of these people. And hopefully, I guess I will see some of them again, but if not, I guess so be it. But, I guess, right, being kind of the character, Cole Diamond, which it's really not too much of a departure from who I am, other than the name. But it's, it's fun. Like I mentioned earlier, just like when I get emails, from people, or like at the end of the night, I'll be like settling up or something, and someone will say, hey, good to see, good job, Cole. And I just I don't correct them. So then I'm like, now I'm, I guess, culpable on this. I'm part of the problem now.
Sounds like you're part of the solution.
Well, right. That's hopefully.
So people go for a whole night of a fantasy. There you go.
Yeah,
whole
right.
show.
Yeah, and then hopefully they're not just too let down when they're like, wait a minute, this is just that guy? Ryan? That's him. I know him. I saw him waiting for the bus.
So when you're speaking with your son, does he say, is this Dad, is this Ryan or is this Cole I'm answering to?
Right. It hasn't quite gotten to that point yet.
Okay. Okay. Just
mean,
checking.
Yeah,
What?
it is.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I want to know what kind of, I know you said you wanted to play your own songs and stuff, but what really kicked you from being the drummer to
Yeah.
saying
Kinda
like,
me.
yeah, like also, you know what I mean? I'm sure over time, but I feel
Right.
like that's a big jump.
Well, I made the joke of, there's always your ego will only let you get so far when you're playing drums. So it's like at some point you're like, I need to be in front,
Or you're ready. Yeah.
yeah. Or you're just tired of hauling all the stuff. I think the first time, the first time I actually did a gig as Cole Diamond, and it was just me doing a solo thing. And I showed up with a guitar and like a music stand and just like walked in one trip. I'm like, this is great. After hauling drums for so long, I'm like, I think this is the path. I've been on the wrong one for so long now, and now I know.
Feel like you should write to your mom and be like, you were right. The flute is as good as the tuba.
Well, originally, I mean, it was probably back in like 6th grade, which I think it's still a thing, but when you're originally signing up for whatever band instrument you want to play, if you want to be in band. And I remember I wanted to play drums, and I didn't quite understand that it was just a drum. I thought that it was like a full drum kit. And so that was kind of a little, I'm like, well, and plus you had to have like taken piano or something like that, which I hadn't. So my parents thought, well, instead of buying him a drum kit, we'll just get him a guitar. And then that kind of backfired because I bought, as soon as I could have my own money, I bought the biggest amp and just terrorized everyone. So they bought me like an acoustic, or like, I think they bought me an electric guitar and like a little tiny amp. And I had a job at Subway, and I just, the first I could, I bought like a 100-watt amp and like a 412 cabinet, and it had to have been horrible. I mean, I can't imagine, but.
It's fantastic that you've been playing that long.
Yeah. I mean, I started playing, I mean, it was probably like 7th grade, I think. I got a guitar in 7th grade, so been at it ever since.
Nice.
Trying to chase that dream.
Nice. And how have your music tastes changed throughout the year?
Oh man, I mean, it's funny, like even looking back through, like records and stuff now that we've had all sorts of time to do, just like you scour through every movie you own and like, okay, I've watched everything. I've listened to everything I have. But like, I'll find some records from, I mean, it doesn't even seem that long ago, but, some things just really don't hold up to what I'm into. I'm not too, like, the really aggressive, like, I used to be into a lot of, like, the AMREP type bands, like, Cows and Guzzard and Hammerhead and all that kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily where I'm at now if I'm just, loading the dishwasher and making dinner or something like that. But
so I'd still go see the Cows and Hammerhead tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for sure.
That's pretty good. What I love about your music, and I'm kind of, as I said, I'd go see the Cows tomorrow. Hammerhead, Tosca, and punk, as far as I'm concerned. I love that music too. You play music that brings me back to I am in the back seat of my dad's car driving from St. Paul to Chicago to St. Paul for years. And I just love that. I just love that.
Thank you. That's a common thing that, I mean, not to be braggadocious, but I mean, it is one of those things that, that's a common, like people will say like, oh, it reminds me of exactly that, like that time, and I guess maybe that's, where it's coming from me is, remembering that time, so.
Is that what you grew up listening to too, or your parents?
It was really just a lot of the radio. I mean, honestly, the most country, which is still my favorite, is CCR. Like my dad was a big CCR, is a big CCR fan, I guess. And so that was one thing that, you know, and like even when I was in the midst of, you know, like I guess back in the 90s, I could not be bothered with like Garth Brooks or Alan Jackson or Joe Diffie or anything like that. And I was just all about, yeah, like it's got to be super loud, super distorted guitars, you know, super aggressive. But I mean, there was always the Cretans, there was always like Neil Young. You know, when I found out about Buck Owens, you know, that kind of just started cueing me into some other stuff where I'm like, oh, it's not just all. And now it's funny because I play all those songs, you know, I mean, like all the 90s songs are, I mean, if you compare it to country music now, sounds like Hank Williams or something, you know, I mean, it's crazy.
But I know
yeah,
like
I mean,
some of the very older, you know, I'm a Hank Williams, I'm a Johnny Cash, I'm a Willie Nelson, but then I was probably in the backseat of my dad's car before you were in the backseat of your car. This is a little bit older, but I just I could listen to it all day long. You know, I think even as a kid, even, you know, for me it would have been more in the 80s, but certainly creeping into the 90s a little bit. Yeah, I'd be going to see these bands, but
right.
Johnny
Yeah,
Cash
you always,
is on.
and it's funny because it was the longest time, you know, it's kind of that criteria everyone says like, oh, I really like all kinds of music except country, you know, and it's like, well, you know, maybe just you haven't listened to the right stuff yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's, you know, I guess the thing that really kind of turned it on for me was like, you know, figuring out like who Waylon Jennings was. I mean, I knew, you know, from like Dukes of Hazzard and stuff, but I never really, you know, like outside of just the 4 or 5 songs you hear of his, I mean, digging into some of the back catalog and, you know, I mean, some of that's pretty punk, you know, I mean, and
Well,
I
go
mean,
back
I
to his
guess
days as a cricket. I mean, when he was playing with
Well,
Buddy Holly in
right.
the cricket. You know, I mean, that's, you know, punk, but certainly rock. You know.
Right. Yeah. It was a lot different than what was going on at the time, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that was the thing too, that really, you know, with like that phaser guitar and kind of when things got into the 70s where, you know, it was kind of like that mix of, you know, that cowboys and hippies and, you know, smoking weed and,
Billy
you know,
Nelson.
yeah, exactly. You know, it kind of that blending and like Doug Somm and stuff like that, Freddie Fender, you know, once I kind of started finding out about artists like that, and then I was like, this is really kind of what I'm into. You know, this is the stuff that I like.
That's great. Tell us about your new single. You got people, yeah. How was the inspiration for those songs?
Well, so it's People with Real Jobs is the new single, and it was recorded back, I mean, pretty quickly. It was just back in August.
Oh, wow.
I mean, once again, you know, no one really had anything going on, and it was really easy to just book some studio time because usually, I mean, especially with the guys that I play with, everyone is in a bajillion bands, and especially over the summer, it's like, forget about trying to do anything really, unless it's like a Tuesday or something. But now, you know, no one has anything going on. So it was really easy to just like first email. I'm like, hey, what about this day? Can we just track a couple songs? And everyone's like, yeah, I've got time. So we recorded with Brock Lammers. He's got a studio, is it Mid City Sound, kind of over off 24th and Nicollet. And just did a couple tunes, you know, came together pretty quick. The title track, I guess, on the single, People with Real Jobs, is a friend of mine, Craig, he kind of coined that phrase one night. He used to work for this brewery, and they were promoting like a country night. It was Sundays at Mortimer's. And so we had it earlier, you know, and so one night I remember it was maybe the first night we were doing it, and we got there and we're setting up, and he's like, it's early enough, so maybe People with Real Jobs will show up. you know. And I was like, once again, I'm like, I got to put that down on my little notepad that I got going here. And it's just kind of loosely based around that idea, you know, of like what people consider a real job, you know, or like, you know, maybe that being a musician or being an artist or, you know, doing something like that isn't perceived as a real job. You know, there's not a 401k match or, you know, PTO accrual or things like that, you know. So it's just kind of messing around with that type of idea. Because I mean, I am, in my daytime, I'm just a regular cubicle farmer, you know. So it's kind of speaks to me on that aspect as well. It's like, well, I guess if I want to do this, I have to, you know, find a real job to pay the bills during the day, whatever that real job may be. But maybe someday this one will be the real job, but TBD.
Exactly. Yes, hopefully, absolutely, hopefully, because I think you're very good, but because I want for musicians to be able to make a living again.
Yeah. Well, and I think that this whole thing is just kind of, you know, and who knows? I mean, maybe people will go back to, you know, their old ways once we can go back out. But I think that for a long time, people probably did just take for granted that, you know what, any night of the week, you can just go to a place and see a band, or even if it's like a national touring band, like, they're going to be here, but it's a Wednesday, I'll catch them. They'll be here in like a next year or something. So maybe this whole thing will just kind of light a fire under people again to just be like, hey, you know what? If we don't go do stuff, all that stuff isn't going to exist. You know, like if we don't go and, you know, out on a Wednesday night and, you know, maybe you're a little tired the next day, but, you know.
I have been representing for years for the people who need to go out on a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, a Tuesday night.
Yeah. Well,
I'm one of those 3 bands a night, kind of.
I'd released an EP last year called Late Nights, Early Mornings, which is essentially about that, of just like playing gigs till late and waking up to go to work the next morning, you know. So it's kind of a reality for a lot of musicians. But I guess, you know, when you just do something for so long, like I said, I mean, I've been playing in bands for so long that it just doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. But to someone who doesn't, you know, like you mentioned to them, like, oh, I'm playing Wednesday night. Oh, what time are you going on? I don't know, like 10:30. And it's just like that look of terror, like where they're like, oh, what do you mean? Like 10, you know? And it's like, you don't even know.
Now, if Magic Ball, a year from now, however long, are you looking forward to those late nights again? Or are you like, oh, I don't know how I did it?
No, you know, it's one of those, right? It's the classic, you know, you don't know what you got until it's gone. Was it, I think when one of you guys caught on to my Cinderella.
Yeah. I was like, long hair. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. My roots, my heavy metal roots.
Yep.
But, you know, yeah, I think initially it was kind of nice. I mean, I'd hate to say that, but, you know, it gets to be a lot sometimes, especially when you're just totally on your own doing it. Like you don't have any type of support or booking agent or manager, you know, like a lot of independent musicians. I mean, it's just like you there sending emails and hopefully someone sending an email back. And if you can line something up, then trying to line up the band, you know, and get the logistics sometimes of putting the end product together. Sometimes I think takes a little bit of that fun out of it, you know. And so at first it was like, oh wow, this is just like like I don't have to email anyone, I don't have to worry about trying to book gigs because everyone's booking 3 months out or something like that. But it would be nice to maybe get back in, you know, you kind of miss it after a bit. I'm like, oh gosh, I've got a lot of free time now to just kind of tool around. I can only weed so much, and you know.
Are you writing or doing anything creating anything, or are you like,
Yeah.
no?
I mean, that's kind of where the single came from, just to, you know, have something to do, you know, again, with no gigs, and, you know, it was just a way to, you know, kind of keep the momentum going and keep everyone interested and having fun. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I'm still always just playing and trying to write. And I end up just like learning more songs than I write a lot of times. Like I'll just be sitting around learning songs, and uh, then I'm like, okay, maybe that's good for now. Like I don't need to. I've learned like 7 new songs that aren't mine. Like let's maybe just work on one, you know, that is mine. But you know, there's always stuff going on, and you know, I'm still kind of, you know, working with some other bands, and some random things pop up here every once in a while. Like someone will just have like a jam in their front yard, and you know, you'll show up and just kind of do some brushes and a snare, you know, something like that. It'll be fun. So nice. I mean, that's been nice. Some things have popped up like that. So it hasn't been totally dry of like things to do. And, you know, we'll still get together and jam every once in a while. We'll mask up and play for a little bit. And, you know, I mean, it does with no real end game. You know, there's sometimes isn't that big need to be like, hey, let's get together and practice, you know. But it's still fun. It's more so just to see everybody, and you know, the social aspect of it, I think, is something that I miss. You know, just so many people that I see that you know, I don't see anymore, because I just mainly see them when you're out and about doing your thing, you know, going to gigs or playing at gigs, or you know, whatever it may be.
When you are playing your gigs, do you stick with the core people playing with, or do you kind of rotate them, or?
I try to, just because I'm not really the ace band leader that some people are. Like there's some guys, you know, I mean, there's some band leaders that it seems like they can just lead the band through anything, you know, and I'm still very much just trying to keep my thing together, you know. So I'm really relying on the band to just be like, look, you know, just watch me and hopefully this all works out. But I mean, the core band is kind of the same people, and you know, depending on schedules, you know, maybe someone else will sit in on pedal steel and someone else will sit in on guitar. And I mean, the nice thing about like this type of country music is I mean, there is a formula, you know, so it's like you're really, if you can find some players that know those parameters of that formula, and you know, you can kind of just feel it out. Even if they don't know the song, they've probably played it, you know, or something close to it anyway.
But that's where you get the songs that just, you know, that bring you back to a time. You know, bring
Right.
the audience back to a time. We're like, oh, as I said, for me, it's always specifically driving with my dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I played drums in a cover band that just does all, you know, kind of 70s outlaw country, you know, covers and stuff. But that was something too that really kind of unlocked it for me, is, you know, we were learning a bunch of songs, and, you know, to fill up 3 hours of music with 2 to 3 minute songs is a lot of songs. Like you're playing like 40 plus songs in a night.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're trying to fill out a set list of music, and, you know, I'm just looking for like, okay, songs that are really quick, you know, this one's got 2 chords in it, this one's got 3 chords in it, and, you know, but as you're learning them and you're, you know, and you're actually looking at them, and I'm like, there's not that much here, you know, like there was always this thing in my head of like, a song has to just have a ton of words in it, and it's going to be too difficult. You know, there's got to be all sorts of parts. There's a bridge, there's a pre-chorus, there's a chorus, you know, and but you look at some of these just classic tunes, and when you're looking at it, I'm like, there's like 1 page of words, and a lot of them are just repeated, and you know, it's kind of just cycling over the same progression, you know. So it kind of, you know, I don't know, like maybe it wasn't news, but for me, it just kind of seemed like the mystery was revealed, that it's not really that tough. Sometimes it's just about finding the right vibe, you know, the right feel.
I think the Ramones proved that.
Exactly.
But it is more daunting when you're going to be the one playing it.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, I've always been kind of self-conscious about like my singing voice and stuff, like I'm sure anyone. And but I mean, I love to karaoke. Like that is, if that could be my real job, if I could be a professional karaoke, which that has, you know, been totally kiboshed during this whole COVID.
Oh yeah.
But the most unsafe thing you could probably be doing,
right?
singing karaoke. Yeah,
you.
here you go. And but I think that was something too where that just kind of helped me, you know, just like going to sing karaoke, it's so goofy, you know, that there's not a lot of pressure on you to be good. And just like singing into a microphone, you know, as weird as that sounds, is like a thing, you know, where you're like, oh, you know, yeah, I gotta, just like singing out into the open is different, you know, like you kind of have to learn how to sing into a microphone, you know, so it's all kind of stuff you don't really think about until you're actually trying to do it. And you're like, oh yeah, this is like a whole separate set of skills.
Yeah. It sounds like you are very much an experiential learner, but also that so much of this is muscle memory and is, you know, it's Henry Rollins always had a thing, punk's not here, it's here, but the music's not here, the music's here, you know, and by learning other people's songs, still, it sounds like, you know, that gets you into a groove.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, that's just been my way of coming about it. I know, you know, some people I hear say like, oh, they kind of pish posh being in a cover band or playing other people's music. And to me, I mean, whether it was drums, whether it was learning to play guitar, I mean, that's the first thing I ever did was just try to sound like whatever it was on the radio or MTV or whatever kind of struck me at that time is like, I want to learn that, you know, and from that, you know, then you can take some of those tricks or whatever. And if you do choose, make your own stuff out of them. I mean, it's all the same notes, you know, it's just how you're putting them together.
You make me think of my brother is a trained chef. He worked at Champs when he was a kid for years and years.
Yeah.
And then he went to this Culinary Institute of America.
Right.
You know, knowing how to chop celery really helped him once he learned to chop celery. They're all skills you all bring into it, you know, and it's.
There was I was in Los Angeles. I mean, this was like 10 years ago. I was in Los Angeles and I was in a band. We were playing a wedding in Los Angeles. And so it was like the night before the wedding and we were hanging out, and where we were staying, we asked if there was anything going on. And he said, oh, Gilby Clarke, who was like the guitar player. I want to say he was in Guns N' Roses, like after Izzy Stradlin. And, but he was like, he's got this all-star jam at this club, like a block away. And it's just like all the kind of side men of, you know, like the bass player from this band and the keyboard player from this band. And it was like the best cover band you've ever seen in your life. Like these are all just, you know, on the top of their game professionals, just kind of goofing off, playing songs that everyone knows, like total KQRS jams. And it's like you'd think that, you know, these guys would be you know, but it's all the same stuff. But yeah, they were just way better. They were probably better than the original, but
a band full of Robins with no Batman. That
exactly.
But that gives everybody the opportunity to rise to a certain.
Yeah. Yeah, if you get enough Robins together, then you can equal one Batman. You know, you just you just need more of them.
Well, you know, or maybe a couple of Robins just need a little opportunity.
Yeah, exactly, right? They haven't had their shot.
That's funny. So you say you have had some opportunities to play some places. Have you played some unique or unusual places in our time of innovation?
Well, there's the guitar player from the band. He's got a friend that just moved to town actually from San Diego. like picked the worst time to move to Minneapolis. I think he moved here like in like March 1st or something, and has just and so he's been in lockdown. And so we've been just going over to his place every once in a while, like on a Saturday, and he'll set up in the front yard and we just kind of play there. I'll play drums, just do like a little kick drum, snare drum kind of brushes thing. And so he actually, I think he was going to play at the Lake Harriet band shell or something like that. But the Parks said, well, obviously instead of doing that, if you want, you can just do like a live stream or come into where they have the city council meetings. And they're like, we'll just record a performance and we'll put it up on our YouTube channel. And so I'm like, okay, well, yeah, whatever. So we went in and we did that, but it was literally just in the spot where they do the city council meetings. And it's just, there's like these little cameras in the ceiling, like almost like security cameras, And so that's just what it's filmed on. And it was just kind of bizarre. A, you're not playing for anybody, there's no one in the room. And then B, there's not really, you can't see the cameras. I'm like, but I think they're recording. So it's like, we'll just assume that they are. But I mean, it sounded fine. It just kind of looks like security footage of a band that was like, oh, we found this band playing in the Parks and Rec building last night. Here's some footage.
Mission
any of these people. Yeah. So yeah, that was a little bizarre. But I'll take it. I'll take a bizarre one, why not? It makes it fun.
Kind of interesting though, different spots, or just makes everybody think outside the box.
Right. And I know I joke with my wife of saying, I'm like, I've been, COVID compliant at my gigs for a long time. Like I'm well under the recommended amount of people that should be in a room. I was ahead of the curve.
That's. Well, with that in mind, do you ever give advance notice? Like if people wanted to kind of catch you in somebody's front yard?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, if anything, it would be on my social media, on Facebook or Instagram. I have a Twitter, but I don't really use it too much. But yeah, I don't think there's anything coming up in the near future that I know of. There was kind of a last minute friend of mine had messaged about us playing at a Third Layer skate park on Saturday for a friend's birthday. And, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I was like, oh, that would be a first, I think, a country band at a skate park. So
that would really, I have visions of the opposite of the Blues Brothers,
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to get the skate park to sing to Stand By Your Man, if you can.
As Tony Hawk's going back and forth around.
Yeah, right. It could be a match made in heaven. Who knows?
That could be a good video.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That would be
capturing it. Yes.
Exactly. Well, for folks who are listening, tell people where they can find you on social media, and I'll include it in the notes too. But it's always good to hear.
Yeah. Bandcamp. Just cooldiamond.bandcamp.com. You can buy my music there, t-shirts, all that kind of good stuff. Otherwise, Facebook, I think it's just Coal Diamond Music. Instagram, Coal Diamond Music. Just look for the guy with the hat. That's me. There's a Coal Diamond. He's kind of like an electro kind of R&B artist, but he has the line through the O. I don't know which, it's kind of, but so I'm thinking I should contact him and maybe we should do something.
That would be good.
Ooh. I was gonna say, yeah, you have some. Oh. I was gonna say, go ahead.
No, the beauty of Zoom.
No. I'm not talking.
Oh, well, I was gonna say when I was uploading the music, for the single, and it said that it was going to be up on iTunes and everything, you know, so I just went to go look and make sure everything looks like how it is gonna. And then I saw there was this other Cole Diamond, and it was, you know, kind of somehow like other artists you may like. And so I'm like, wow, who's this Cole Diamond? And then it's such a departure. Like, it is nothing. So it's like, maybe I could use some crossover. He seems to have a lot of fans. So if any of his fans want to come over to my side, there's plenty of room.
Now's the time to do it, because as you say, people are
Right. So yeah, I think maybe maybe that'll be on my list of things to do tomorrow. I'm going to reach out to the other Cole Diamond.
that
We're
would
gonna-
be
Do a
That would be
split
amazing.
7-inch or something.
And say, put it in your notebook.
Yeah, right. Let me get it down here so I don't forget.
No, I was going to compliment your merch. You have some cool merch.
Oh, thank you. I went to school for graphic design, which I don't really do that in my day job now, but I think there were a lot of people that I went to school with that I think were just solely there because they just wanted to make posters for their bands, you know, like that was kind of why I wanted to go to school for graphic design. I'm like, I gotta figure out how to make posters for my bands, and maybe some other bands will want me to make a poster for them. And, you know, it was maybe a little bit more expensive way of going about it, but, you know, there might have been cheaper ways in hindsight, but still a good trade to have.
Comes in handy for sure.
It does.
great skill to have.
I have a weird question just because you say you grew up in a rural area. Where was that?
I grew up in Hutchinson, Minnesota, so about like an hour and a half west on Highway
I grew
7.
up in Spicer, so when I was
Nicer and Spicer.
yes, okay. For some reason, I'm like, there's some farm stuff. Like, I'm like, I might know where he's talking about, so I had to ask. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Canby, Minnesota, and we only lived there for maybe a few years. And then we lived in Hutchinson, or my folks and my brother still live there. And, but yeah, after high school, as beautiful as it is there, I said,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to try something else.
Yeah,
It's funny, I know some folks from
understand
Canby.
Oh, really?
I do a lot of work out in Lac-Pearl County. Yep.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, you know, unfortunately, my grandparents have passed away, and can't remember the last time I was to Canby. I mean, it's probably been like 20 plus years or something, but it was like one of those towns where even like Hutchinson's a small town, but like then when you would drive back to Canby, it felt like even, you know, like the bowling alley, you had to score your own. Like they didn't. I'm like, how do you do this? I don't know how to score bowling. You just get a 1.
Yeah, exactly. We're just gonna go happy space, small face, and whoever gets
Yeah.
the.
Yep. I was like, wow, this town's small.
Yes, here is something funny is that area is they have some of the best broadband in the state in that area.
Oh, really?
Those little towns.
Well, I suppose. I mean, I think it was actually, is Watertown, South Dakota is like right by there. And I want to say it was young. I was young, so that's my excuse. But we were in Watertown because I think that was like the closest mall. And so we drove there, and like we're walking through the parking lot, and I said, I'm like, sure are a lot of people from South Dakota here. And then my parents just kind of looked at me and they're like, we're in South Dakota. Like, we might need to focus more on your academics.
Some geography.
Yeah, just some basic geography. But yeah, I do remember I saw it was like not too long ago, but the pizza place in Canby, PK Egan's. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, that rings a bell, but I don't. I would often eat the Rusty Duck, which is at Dawson, which is nearby.
Yep.
But it rings a bell.
There was something, it was like some Explore Minnesota type thing popped up, and it was like, great, day trip place to go. And it was like PK Egan's in Canby. And I'm like, that's like a close to 3-hour drive.
I was like, that is a solid day trip.
I'm like, I can't say the pizza was that good, but they do have these coat button fries. They're kind of like I don't know, like a potato wedge or something, but I mean, they're good, but I don't know if I would drive through that. If I was in the area, I would stop.
Well, if we're going for some sponsorship for them, or if you are, you should.
Yeah, hey, PK
we'll
Egan's.
save that clip. If I was going through the
The
area.
Canby Bowling Alley. Anybody? Any sponsors?
Yeah. It's all, Minnesota's a pretty state. It's all a pretty area. To be fair, it is. But until you're coming home at 10, you're coming home to the cities at 10 o'clock, and you've got that mesmerizing snow. I used to teach classes until maybe 8 o'clock, and then.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like that, like warp speed in Star Wars or something, where it's like, kind of get hypnotized after a while.
Oh, there were times that I opened the window.
Yeah.
Open the window.
Yeah, I know. That is the worst. I haven't had a really bad, like kind of falling asleep, while driving, gosh, I think it was high school. I remember we were like snowboarding or something. It was like all night ski. We went to Powder Ridge in Kimball. And so like everything's open till like 3. And so, whatever, it was like a Friday. So, we got up and went to school at probably like 7:30. And then at school, go there, 3 in the morning, I'm driving my friend home, and then I'm driving back, and it's that snow, and just tired. And it's like the radio is up as loud as it can go, and the window is open, and you're still just kind of like, oh. It was the longest ride. I'm like, please, I just want to get home so bad.
That is what separates people who grew up I grew up between St. Paul and Chicago. Like, You live 5 miles away? No, that's too far, man.
Yeah.
You're from Hutchinson, also 30 miles? No worries.
There is a definite, like, I will not drive. I've got a friend that lives in Fridley, and I haven't seen him in years. It was like he was in my wedding. It's like a good friend, and it's like, and even when he moved there, it was like he was going to Australia. He's like, well, I guess that's it.
Give me a hug, man.
You're in South Minneapolis. I'm going to be in Fridley. We're never going to see you. I'm not coming to see you. You're not coming up there. But like in high school, I mean, we would drive all over the place, or like, because we just had no other option. Everything was like an hour away. Like if you wanted to go to St. Cloud to go see a show, or Mankato or Minneapolis. So it was like you just kind of drove everywhere. But now that I don't have to, I'm like, I don't want to. Too far.
No.
I was going to say, between Hutchinson and Spicer, if you had 5 miles, that was your neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah, there was plenty of times I drove my moped from Hutchinson to Silver Lake, which was like the next town over. But there was like a gravel road so you didn't have to like take the freeway, Still probably not the safest.
I was just gonna say, that's a tough call on that one. Gravel road and a moped.
No, it's fine. It was on a gravel road at night. It was totally safe.
God.
Oh. You have a son now. Gonna be telling him that story?
Oh my gosh, I know, right? And yeah, now I'm like 7:30. I'm like, oh, you better get home because it's starting to get dark. So
street lights are on.
I know. How soon we forget.
Yep. And the story changes. Well, there you go. Well, now you got a lot of fodder for your next single release.
Yeah.
That'll be, we'll want to see this instead of Baby Bye Bye on the next. Yeah. Do you know if you have any plans coming up? It's a rough question to ask people during COVID. I mean, we're going to pay attention to the social to see if there's a chance we can sneak a peek at the third layer.
Yeah, keep an eye on any social medias, and by all means, if we're not friends on them, go ahead and friend me out there. And you know, might just try to go and record another single or, a couple tunes again. Just
Yeah,
try to
please do.
keep things coming out. It's always hard with like a full album, I mean, it'd be great to just kind of, get 10, 12 songs together, but, unfortunately it all takes money. So it seems like at this point, doing a couple songs here and there seems to be a little bit more attainable. And maybe if I get my collab with my new friend, the other Cole Diamond, then
Be a
money
whole
will
new
be no
direction.
issue. Yeah, money, be like, forget about it. Who cares?
No worries. No
No worries. We're covered. We're covered.
Oh, but you know what? Right now, the music lovers like us will take it in drips and drabs. Don't be making us wait. We don't have the patience to wait right
Yeah.
now. Do it now. Do it now. We don't know what's happening, and it's a gift to have new music now. You
Yeah.
know, it really
Yeah,
is.
it has been great. I mean, just seeing everyone still trying to, be creative and do what they do. I mean, it's not something that I guess you can just stop doing. I mean, I guess you can, but
That's
To
not
your
fun.
detriment.
yeah, what fun is that?
Exactly. 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 Ryan, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was really great. I'm glad you liked the single, and just keep listening, and I'm sure there'll be more out there for you, and hopefully soon we'll be able to get back to doing gigs and having fun and everything else.
I'm not above dragging a kid to hang out at Third Layer so that I don't look like a creepy old lady and listen to
Right?
whatever I
Well-
want to. I've been to some interesting.
It's
So you
funny
never know.
because my son, I kind of had gotten back into skateboarding a few years ago because I took my son to a birthday party at Third Layer, and they just, had some skateboards, and they're like, parents, if you want to ride around. And so then I did, and I'm like, all right, I could probably get back into this. And so then he kind of bailed on me and wasn't really into scootering anymore. I mean, he still does, but I'm assuming he just doesn't want to go to the skate park with his dad. So now
There
they're,
comes a diet day.
yeah, there comes a day, believe it or not. But now there are some times when I'm just at a skate park and I'm like that weird dude, that questionable person there skateboarding. They're like, are you like a narc or are you dangerous? Like, what? It's one of the two. Like, it's not like, oh, you're just a normal guy.
Exactly. Hey, 21 Jump
Something's
Street,
wrong
what
with
you
him.
doing? Yeah.
Yeah, hey buddy.
Now if I'm for sure going to Third Layer.
Yeah, you might see me there. I'll be the guy with the cowboy hat.
Yeah. That does not make it worse at all. The skateboard part.
Yeah, right. Yeah, blend right in.
Yeah. I'll be the one in the Thrasher sweatshirt. my Doc Martens skate buddy boots, which sadly is exactly what I was wearing yesterday. So
You're in.
it's a plan. It's a plan. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it was great meeting you both.
Thank you.